Welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Vinitaly International Wine and Spirits Exhibition. The 54th edition of Vinitaly was held from 10 to the 13th of April. If you missed it, don't worry. Go to vinitalyplus.com for on-demand recordings of all the sessions from the exhibition. And remember to save the date. The next edition of Vinitaly will be held from the 2nd to the 5th of April 2023. Welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. I'm Cynthia Chaplin, and this is Voices. Every Wednesday, I will be sharing conversations with international wine industry professionals, discussing issues in diversity, equity, and inclusion through their personal experiences working in the field of wine. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate our show wherever you get your pods. Hello and welcome to Voices. This is Cynthia Chaplin, and today I'm delighted to welcome Lamar Covert. Lamar is from Philadelphia, so we're both Midwesterners, which is kind of a fun connection. I'm sitting here in Verona, and he's in Pennsylvania, but it just shows how small the world really is. He's the CEO at CYL Hospitality Group, handling a lot of accounts and catering and events management, getting things going for people who are coming into the business. He's a certified sommelier and a partner at Blacoak Wine Club, which just opened up new premises in Philly in the autumn of 2021. So thanks for making the time today, Lamar. I totally forgot it was President's Day, so I got you out of bed early. My bad. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. You know, it doesn't bother me to wake up early when it's something that you love and, something you love to talk about. So, yes, I'm excited.
Exactly. Oh, well, I'm glad. Thank you very much. So I am fascinated by sort of what you're into these days, but I really want to know how you got to where you are. How did you get into wine? Like, I did not find wine at all until I went to college, and then it kind of found me. What was your road into the sector? How did you come into the wine biz?
So how did I get into the wine industry? So with, me working in the nightlife and the hospitality space, in my demographic, there was a lot of spirits. There was a lot of, sweet liquors and things like that. So as I got older, I began to dive into it probably around like early 20s, honestly, just curious about it. And my life pretty much changed one night. I was on a date and there was a guy, an African American guy, and he was, well manicured. He was on a date as well, and he was actually on a date with two women.
Oh wow, good for him.
So in my early 20s, seeing that, I said, wow, like how can I do this one day, right? But
aspirations. We all have aspirations.
Aspirations, right? So the only wine at that time that I was drinking was a Sauvignon Blanc, and mass-produced Sauvignon Blanc, Cavit, Barefoot, Yellowtail, and he had a glass of red wine, and I asked the waiter what type of wine he was drinking, and he told me it was a glass of Merlot. So I ordered that glass of Merlot, just trying to seem as if I knew what I was doing because I was on a date as well, and I got that glass of Merlot, and my life changed. I never drank red wine until I went to school. So, throughout my early 20s all the way up until, now, mid 30s, I was drinking red wine for a long time. And I just went down like a wormhole of research at that point. I would go to the local, liquor shop, and I would, buy Merlot. And one of the sales representatives one day said, listen, if you like Merlot, then you would like something like this. And they suggested Cabernet Sauvignon. And I began drinking Cabernet Sauvignon, and I stopped drinking Merlot. So I just went down a wormhole of drinking Cabernet Sauvignon at that point. And what really did it was I was in New York one time at a small wine shop, and I was with a group of people. Most of them were women at the time. So I was showing off a little bit, right? So I asked the guy, I asked him for a wine suggestion, and he asked me my price, and I said, well, $50. I never spent $50 on a bottle of wine ever. So I was just like showing off, making it seem like I knew what I was doing because I was so curious about wine at this point. I figured if I spent $50, I would get a better bottle of wine. So he asked me what I drink, and I told him, I drink big, full bodied wines like Merlot and Cabernet. So he said, listen, try this. And he gave me a bottle of Bordeaux.
Oh my goodness. And blew your mind.
Blew my mind, right? It was a whole new world. It was a whole new world. It literally was like going to another country and never seeing, any of the, the scenery. He gave me this bottle of Bordeaux. I think it was a Chateau La Ravie, Aubryon. And on the ride back home, I literally was glued to Google about Bordeaux, and I just went. I went on a journey. I went on a trip.
So I'm guessing you didn't get a lot of dates after that if you're Googling wine on the way home.
Right. All I could think about was wine at that point. So yeah, this was probably around 2008. I want to say 2008, 2009, probably. So I just went down a wormhole of research, and every article I could find, every YouTube video, every book, I would just buy everything, and also the wine itself. And we know how expensive that can get. So I just bought a lot, and I would just sit in the house and read, and I would sit in school and, be at work just reading and Googling and tasting wine and trying to understand, all of these tasting notes and aromas and things like that, which I didn't grasp until I went to school. But I would like to say, that time that I did that research on my own, it kind of prepped me for when I went to school. And, I felt comfortable being in school at that time because, I did, 5-6 years of research before I even, took a class. And that led me to taking online classes. I took some free online classes as well, just out of curiosity. And yes, I've been on this journey ever since. Ever since.
It's amazing how addictive it is, isn't it? It's yeah. Once you start dipping your toe in, you can't come back out again. All of a sudden, you're in, and that's it. Oh, I love that. So you did a load of prep work on your own, and then you decided to become a sommelier. Where did you do that?
I went to the wine school of Philadelphia. Instructor Keith Wallace, he is like, a renowned somm, a wine consultant. He's also a winemaker. He created the curriculum for the National Wine School, NWS, which is, basically an accreditation agency, just like, CMS and WSET. But he also started his own wine school in Philadelphia. And through visiting wineries in Pennsylvania with my sister Ebony, we had made a relationship with some winemakers. And, we would go so much and, we would taste wine so much. And I would have conversations with these winemakers. And, one day he said, listen, man, every time you come here, we have these in-depth conversations, what do you do? Like, are you in the industry? And I'm like, no, I only do catering and I do events and things like that. Like, I'm actually not in the wine business. He said, well, how do you know so much about wine? I said, listen, man, I'm just enthusiastic about this and I have a deep thirst for knowledge about wine. This was not something that I grew up with. And, I'm just truly interested in it. He said, well, listen, and he was very blunt. And, this guy, he was a Caucasian, he's Caucasian. He said, listen, for people to respect you in the industry, you should go get your SOM certification. He said, and I'm gonna be honest with you, it may be off-putting to some people who do not look like you when you begin to talk about wine. He said, so I would never want anybody to, belittle you or undermine what you're saying. So you should go get the paperwork to back up what you're saying. And
which is harsh, but probably really good advice, actually.
yes, and because it was good advice, I didn't take it, harshly. I didn't take it a wrong way because I had already developed a relationship with this guy. Like, we were really cool at this point. So, I took it positive. I took it as if he, didn't want me to. He wanted me to prosper, in the industry, and he didn't want me to be taken advantage of, or he didn't want people to view me a certain way because, we know the wine industry, it can be very, elitist at times. So, yeah.
Often, for sure. Yeah, and the sad part about all of this is that, you were talking to, what was it, 2008, 2010? This wasn't like 65 years ago. It was just recently. So, but it's, I think also, as you said, it's not just the wine industry isn't just fairly not diverse, but it is one of those elitist things where you do have to have the creds and you have to have the paperwork and things to show that you know what you're talking about. And I think, if you're coming in, as a Black person or a person of color or someone else, I think he gave you really good advice. It shouldn't be that way, but it still is, which is a big problem.
Yeah, but it's par for the course. So I'm here.
So you did it. So you did it.
I did it. Yes, I did it. I am, certified Somm. I'm in progress of becoming an advanced Somm probably by the fall of this year. So I would be an advanced Somm by then. So yes, I'm still in school.
Are you doing it with the Court of Master Sommelier in the States?
So I'm taking my advance with the same school right now, and they have a master program, but their master program is more so focused on business. So it's, if you want to start a wine business, I'm not sure if I'm going to go the CMS route. The level of knowledge that I have obtained from, NWS and the Wine School of Philadelphia, I view it as being on par with, other accreditation agencies. I know a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who are, who sat at CMS and they also did WSET, and we have these back and forths, these conversations, and it just reassures me that okay, you actually know what you're talking about. You actually got the proper, knowledge on par with the other accreditation agencies. So yes, I don't know. I always thought about going master, but it's just not in the cards for me right now.
Yeah, it's an interesting time for them too. With they've had the big scandal with the misogyny that was going on, so it's pretty clear that they're not the most welcoming place to start with. And it sounds like Keith has done you right. So that's and it's great how different areas of wine study can really provide you with similar, if not exactly the same information. And it really comes down to your ability and willingness to put in the time and study. And it sounds like you did that in spades.
Exactly. And that's how I always viewed it. Do I want to go to CMS? And again, I'm not speaking down on, CMS at all, but if I can sit down and I have this thirst for knowledge that I have, and I just want to do this research on my own, every book that has been recommended in the wine industry, I have that book in my house. So if I want to just obtain this knowledge for myself and for me to be able to move forward and start a wine business or, wine businesses in the future, I can do that on my own, so I kind of just like weighing my options at this point. Do I want to go that far? And we'll see. But I'm gonna finish up advanced first, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Well, you've got some pretty cool options, and I'm really excited about your new venture, which is Blacoak. I'm dying to hear how this is going. I know it started up sort of over a year ago, offering classes and things online, industry updates, and listing Black-owned wine brands. And you're hosting a podcast, the Wine and Cheese Girls podcast. I love that. And events and vacation getaways and stuff. I love the premise behind it, that wine brings people together and starts conversations, because I obviously could talk about wine forever. It sounds like you could too. But your sister said a really cool thing. Ebony said, the biggest thing for me is being able to educate people who look like me and make them feel comfortable walking into and being in rooms that may have been intimidating before. And I'm a wine educator too. And so this is important to me to talk about how to diversify our industry and how to educate people, how to make it more welcoming, how to open doors for people who felt excluded. So what are your goals for Blacoak? I'm excited about this.
Blacoak. So, these wineries that we were visiting, right, when I met my friend Brian, who gave me this information, we were actually in the process of getting a wine produced by this winery. And throughout these conversations of getting this wine produced, Ebony just called me one day and said, "Hey, we're finding out about a lot of these Black-owned wine brands, and we are of the support Black movement, the buy Black movement." So she said, "Listen, we should start this wine club." And literally, it was like a 5 minute call. She called me really fast. Like Ebony, she's like a doer. She's a go getter. So, I was probably in the midst of doing something. She called me, and I'm just like, yes, yes, okay, all right, let's do it, let's do it. Just getting back to whatever I was doing, and literally maybe 48 hours, there was an LLC, there was a website being produced. So it just kind of took, me and my other partners by storm when this happened. So the purpose of it is to expose black owned wine brands, black owned winemakers, black owned, people in the industry, black people in the industry, but then also educating our community about wine. So one thing that we began doing was we were doing in-home tastings, and we were doing online tastings, especially because this started in the pandemic. So we had to start whichever way we could at the time. And one thing we realized is that a lot of, people from our communities, and, when I say that, I'm talking about Black people, we don't come up with wine. We don't grow up with wine. A lot of us, we grew up with spirits in our households, and probably the most thing we had, the thing that we had that was closer to wine was like Manischewitz.
Oh my God.
Exactly. So we don't have a lot of wine knowledge. A lot of our families did not own land. They weren't vintners. And also in our communities, they don't market wine. They market spirits, they market, sweet liqueurs. So wine was kind of, something that we weren't privy to. And, what I realized is that when somebody when they taste wine, they get turned off, and they believe that that's what all wine tastes like. If you've been drinking, cognac or whiskey or vodka, once you taste a glass of wine, you're like, oh, I don't like wine.
Yeah, you have to recalibrate your whole palate.
Exactly. It's like 1,400 varietals in the world. Like every wine does not taste the same. So, we felt like one of those barriers to entry was education, educating people about wine, how to taste it, how to smell it, what it looks like, what the mouthfeel is, all of those things. And hopefully that will allow people or that will encourage people to buy more wine. Because if we're trying to get people to buy wine, and especially with Blacoak, get them to buy Black owned wine, you have to be educated before you would even take that step to even search out a Black owned wine brand, or, search out wine itself. Most people go to the local liquor store and they buy the thing that they always buy, what they're used to, what somebody else told them about. So, there's a lot of levels to, a lot of walls to knock down when it comes to wine education in terms of, the African American community.
Yeah, no, and it really points out, I mean, wine education really does open up horizons that often people just never saw themselves on. I mean, I educate young people, generally students doing their semester or their year abroad, and I teach Italian wine. And most of them, if they've had wine at all, it was Frangia, it was something else. And it is fun to see, as you say, those walls come down. But particularly, for the Black population, people of color who, as you said, this isn't part of your culture growing up. It's not something that you really know anything about. To have the curtain whipped back and be able to take part and belong and learn and enjoy, you're providing something that's really amazing. And I love the fact that you've got the whole interest of Black owned wineries at heart too, not just your Black consumers, but, Black winemakers as well. I was reading about Blacoak because I got really excited about it, creating a community that strives to help the industry respect the buying power of Black consumers and the expertise of Black wine professionals. I mean, this is really crucial stuff if we're ever going to get the wine sector to be more inclusive. At the moment, only roughly 1 in every 1,000 winemakers in the U.S. is Black. And of the 11,000 wineries in the U.S., less than 1% of them are Black owned. I mean, that's just horrific statistics. But the thing that's interesting for me is that the first recognized Black winemaker was a man called John June Lewis in the 1940s in Virginia. What happened? Because clearly he was not leading the charge, or somebody made him stop, or What happened? Why do we have so few Black winemakers and Black-owned wineries?
So, in my knowledge, or what what I've researched or what I've talked about, there's a lot of, discriminatory practices to Black farmers. When you think about the disadvantages of events like the Homestead Act of 1862, where, there was no redistribution of land, nor were there any reparations after slavery, just various discriminatory acts against Black farmers in forms of like federal policies, financial lending, and, just blatant, just like violent theft of their land. We were set back. We were set back. And I think that plays a role when we start talking about land. And then, even now with winemakers who own wineries who may not own land, you know, getting distribution, for small wineries, that's very hard. Sales representatives, the loans that you may need to take out to even open a winery, let alone purchasing your grapes, getting your equipment, getting your workers, your employees. A lot of it, I believe, stems back to being set back so long ago, with the level of racism that, Black farmers have had to endure. Land is, one of the main sources of generational wealth within families. So, it's hard for these winemakers to get visibility outside of their local territories. Like I said, with distribution. So I think, that's why we are now just getting to the point where you begin to see these Black owned wine brands. And again, a lot of the Black owned wine brands don't own the land. They're just winemakers.
Yeah, that's so true. That is really true. Not only in the US, but other places too, South Africa, things like that. People, yeah, a lot of Black people coming into the wine industry right now don't own the land. That is a very good point.
It's going to take a while, but I feel like, we're getting there. We're on track, especially now, within this last year, with of course, unfortunately with George Floyd, which pretty much sparked the Buy Black movement. A lot of the Black winemakers now, they have gained national distribution, because of that, because everybody is, speaking about them on social media. Some of these Black owned winemakers, they're getting, national press. So I think this last year pretty much, it kind of made it evident that, we have a power, Black people, there's a power in our voices, but that power in our voices has, pushed these Black owned wine brands, to the forefront. And hopefully, hopefully it's not just a trend, hopefully people stick by it and they continue to support. I know that certain wines, certain Black owned winemakers, they can't make certain wines because of, where they're at, or the access to certain grapes. But as time goes on, I'm sure they'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as time goes on. But, I just hope it's not a trend. I hope people just continue. Yes.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I think you make an interesting point too, particularly about loans, being able to get, substantial loans for getting these businesses really, really up and running. I think that's something that the US government really has to take a good look at to make sure that there's fair lending policies going on for Black owned businesses, Black owned wineries, because capital has to come from somewhere. Well, you're doing your part with Blacoak. I'm wondering what CYL is doing. Are you partnering with Black-owned wineries for your events, for your catering things? Because that's kind of you're wearing two hats. You've got Blacoak and you've got CYL. What are you doing with them?
Yes, yes. So CYL has always been my baby. I've always wanted to be in the hospitality industry. I've always had goals of opening a restaurant, and I have a lofty goal of operating a hotel at some point. So that has always
talk about needing some loans. Wow.
Yes, right. Exactly, exactly. But that has always been a goal of mine. That one thing that you have always thought about in life that always was in the back of your mind. That was it. Hospitality was it. I love hospitality. I love to accommodate people and make people feel good, which is probably why I was in the nightlife industry at that time, being able to provide people an experience, provide them a good time. So right now with CYL, we pretty much took the approach of catering to just begin to put ourselves out there and allow people to, experience, what we do. So we're actually going to launch this summer some wine pairing dinners, and I definitely will be reaching out to some Black-owned wine brands. But again, just having wine, period, I think is great with these pairings because people begin to see different types of wine, right? Like there's no Black-owned wine brand that makes a Chardonnay Montrachet. So I still want people to be able to be educated on Italian wines and French wines and other wines, but I definitely that's definitely a part of the program that we will be putting together. So yeah. Hopefully one day we'll be having another conversation, and I'll have a hotel that I can invite you to.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I mean, I love the whole concept of food and wine pairing, and I think it is another way to break down some of those walls. If you grow up eating food that isn't sort of traditionally paired with wine, it's a lot of fun to teach people how to pair wine with spicy food or, vegetarian food or different things. I love doing cross-cultural wine pairings where you've got a French wine with, an Asian dish, things like that. And it gets people talking, it gets people excited, and it does break down a lot of barriers. So food and wine really do have a power that not a lot of other things do at the moment. So I can see why you love it. So before we go, I want to have a little bit of fun with this chat. I hear you've had a foray into acting in the film Money Loves. How did that come about? Would you go down the acting route?
You know what? That's something that I've thought about before, and I'm fairly close to some people who are in the industry, so I've been on some movie sets before, and I see how it works. Yeah, I think me is just a challenge. It's like taking on a new challenge and be able, to come out on top of that challenge. I would love to do it, and that's another thing that happened. Ebony just being a go getter, like calling me, like, "Hey, I need an extra in the film. I need you to be, I need you to be here." I'm like, "Oh my goodness, man! Like you have no idea what I'm doing today. You just you just called me, to fill in a spot." So when I got there, I'm thinking that I'm going to be an extra, and she's like, "Listen, I need you to get behind the bar. I need you to be a som. I need you to basically teach a class, and we're going to get you, we're going to film you teaching a class." I'm like, "Are you serious? Are you serious?" So
I'm a big sister. I know what sisters are like.
yeah. So I basically had to, walk in the building and just turn the light switch on and do what it is that we do, every week. And I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And I actually got it right on the first take.
Oh, fantastic. Amazing.
Yes, yes. So I walked away from there, feeling very accomplished. So yeah, I would definitely go down that road if I got the opportunity, or if I just had the time to focus on it. Right now, with wine and you hear me, I'm trying to open a hotel. Like I don't know if I have time for an acting gig right now.
Yeah, well, you just never know. You never know. And now you've basically become like the cool, good-looking guy in the restaurant when you were on your date drinking your your Sauvignon. You've become that guy. So that's a great opportunity to really, as you said, use your voice, be a role model, show people, that it's possible. That could be them too. You never know. You might be inspiring some other poor guy who wants to go out with two women.
Exactly.
I want to know, I mean, talking about the wine and food thing, also, I know you're pescatarian. So, when nobody's watching you and you're not, needing to put on a show for anybody, what are you drinking? What are your top wines to play around with for pairing with fish?
Oh man, my top line. So, of course, I went down a Bordeaux wormhole, but I cannot pair that with fish. So what I've got into lately are Oregon Pinot Noirs. I eat a lot of salmon, and I eat a lot of, like, dense fish like halibut. So I do an Oregon Pinot Noir. It's light enough, it's fruity enough, but then it still has some structure to it, and the fish won't overpower it. And I love Chablis, and like I just mentioned before, like Chassenay. Like I love Chassenay Montrachet.
One of my favorites.
Yes, yes. I have a friend who's an importer, and he had a launch event, and he sold me a few of his bottles, but he sold them to me at like retail, like wholesale price.
Oh, good friend to have.
Yes, exactly. So I purchased maybe like four of them, and I only spent like I want to say $185.
Wow, bargain.
Yes. So you know, um, I fell in love the day that I tasted that. So yeah, those are my two whites that I probably go with in terms of my diet. Chablis a little more because Chablis is a little more affordable than purchasing a Chardonnay. So whenever I can get my hands on one, yeah, I definitely will. But I keep Chablis and I keep Pinot Noir around the house. Yes.
House wines. It's important. Well, my famous final question before I let you go back to your day off is what's your favorite Italian wine?
Favorite Italian wine. So I have a couple favorites. Some of them are like tried and true, but some of them I'm like experimenting with. So Brunello, you can't go wrong with Brunello.
No, you cannot.
The first time I had a Brunello, it was like a 2000 and I want to say 10. So my first experience with a Brunello was amazing, and it's up there with some of those bigger wines, but it's not as harsh. It's still kind of fruity. So I love Brunello. I just got into Sagrantino.
Oh, wow, that's a big wine.
Yeah, yeah. My winemaker friend, he had put me onto Sagrantino. I love it. I'm still experimenting with it, but I've probably had it about I want to say three times now, and I enjoyed all of them. So it's just something that I'm playing around with right now. Wrapping my head around. Um, Everyday drinking, Barbera, hands down.
Good choice.
Yes, just juicy, easy drinking. Pop it open. I love Barbera, and the new Italian wine that I'm trying out now is a Terrassi. Alianico.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Campagna.
Yes, yes. I purchased one maybe about a year ago, 2008, and I didn't open it. But from that time, I've had some that were around like 16, 17, and I loved them. So now I'm like curious of what this 2008 is going to taste like. After I had these 16s and 17s, it's still sitting in my basement right now. So
Well, Alianico ages well, so you're gonna have a good surprise when you open that one.
yes, yes, and I need a group of people because it's a 1.5 liter. I need some people around who really drink wine to experience this with me. So that'll be a good time. So yeah, those are my four Italians that I pretty much fell in love with and that I'm experimenting with right now.
Well, if you're an Oregon Pinot Noir guy, I've got to point you towards Mount Etna Nerello Mascalese from Sicily.
Yes. Okay.
You got to get your hands on some of that and see what you think.
Yes, I had one in school, but it was only like a 2 ounce pour, so I couldn't really experience it too much.
Tragedy.
Exactly. So I have to dive into that. Thank you for that recommendation.
Well, this has been such a great conversation, Lamar. I really appreciate you taking your time out and getting up early to chat with me. Thank you so much. And I wish you all the best, both for CYL, but really for Blacoak as well. Anything that has education at its heart is something that I really love. So I've got a lot of good thoughts going your way for Blacoak.
Oh, thank you as well. I appreciate the opportunity. It's kind of overwhelming because I'm like the new kid on the block. I went through a lot of the episodes that you guys have, and a lot of these people they're like 20-year industry veterans, and I'm like, wow, okay, how did I get this opportunity? So
Because I hunt everybody down. I love talking to everyone. So yeah, it's important for me to talk to people who are new to the business because you've got a different perspective, and that's really crucial.
yes, yes, I'm very humbled by the opportunity. Again, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Well, it was my pleasure. You have a great day.
All right, you too.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Italian Wine Podcast, brought to you by Vinitaly International Wine and Spirits Exhibition, the biggest drinks trade fair in the world. Save the date! The next edition of Vinitaly will be held the 2nd through the 5th of April 2023. Remember to subscribe to Italian Wine Podcast and catch us on SoundCloud, Spotify, and wherever you get your pods. You can also find us at ItalianWinePodcast.com. Chin chin!
Hi guys, I'm Joy Livingston and I am the producer of the Italian Wine Podcast. Thank you for listening. We are the only wine podcast that has been doing a daily show since the pandemic began. This is a labor of love and we are committed to bringing you free content every day. Of course, this takes time and effort, not to mention the cost of equipment, production, and editing. We would be grateful for your donations, suggestions, requests, and ideas. For more information on how to get in touch, go to ItalianWinePodcast.com.